Zack, why are you doing all this crazy stuff?
Oh, why do you care? I mean, it's not like you're my girlfriend.
Is that what this is about? Me?
You. Don't flatter yourself.
Fine. And go do what you want. Go jump out of an airplane for all I care.
Hey. Jump out of an airplane. Well, that's not bad.
I just wanted to let you know about my study group.
Oh, don't be a fuddy-duddy. I'll be your study buddy.
I'm about to embark on one of the great challenges of my scientific career.
This work right here is going to change history.
I think this is going to be our greatest mission.
I don't have time to study! I'll never get into Stanford!
I got big plans for you tonight. I got maps, I got charts. I'm going to see you through this because my credibility is on the line.
It's at this point that you'll want to start taking notes.
Welcome to the Sitcom Study, the podcast where we contemplate the TV shows we grew up with and search for the truth and wisdom within the tropes and cliches. And Amy, what are we diving into today?
You might be diving in. I am noping the fuck out. We are talking about skydiving.
Skydiving. This is a big one. I've been itching to do this. I feel like for months now, whenever I present you with, we need something for the podcast. Maybe bachelor parties or skydiving. Maybe first day of school or skydiving.
I always go the other direction.
Gets shot down. Yeah. This is in addition to the ones that we're covering. There's the Full House episode, which I think is also Jesse's wedding, if I'm remembering correctly. That's the first one that springs to mind for me. There's a famous Cheers episode where they go skydiving. But so lots of sitcom skydiving, and we'll get into the reasons why that may be. I feel like you've already made your opinions on this pretty clear last time when we gave the little preview. So go ahead and tell the world, what is your experience with and opinion about the practice of throwing oneself from an airplane?
Anyone who is interested, you are welcome to it. I had a very vivid dream when I was in high school that I went skydiving, fell out of the plane, my parachute didn't open, and I bounced in the middle of my high school quad, the courtyard where we all ate lunch, and then bounced in the middle and then up on top of one of the awnings. And while I was laying there dead, I heard the entirety of my school, teachers included, standing in the quad talking about me. And it was the worst dream I've ever had. I remember it to this day. And I know that if I ever went skydiving, I would bounce and die.
Your takeaway from that dream was just the literal lesson of avoid skydiving.
Avoid skydiving because you don't want to listen in at your own funeral.
Do you dream about flying?
No, I don't dream
Okay,
about
I do a lot. I will say I also have never been skydiving, and I probably never will, but I do have a little bit of a fascination, as you know, with watching videos of people doing skydiving and other sort of like really high up things.
Well, and you know me, I'm like, yes, let's bungee jump. Yes, let's go on that crazy ride.
So you bungee jump, but don't skydive.
I would do, I say yes to all those things. It is because of that dream.
Just because of that one dream.
It's because of that dream. Right. And I will never, ever do it. It's the one thing I won't do.
I wouldn't say I'm phobic of heights in the sense of like, I can go on an airplane, I can look out a tall window, whatever, all of those things. But anytime I'm somewhere high up and I'm insecure, and it doesn't even have to be that high up. It could be climbing up a ladder, trying to get over a fence.
And I'm feeling a little sad today, so.
I feel like if I make a wrong move, I'll fall. I get uncomfortable. And I find that even just being on the ground and looking up
gives you that same feeling.
Yeah, just looking up at like a really tall crane, even like a really tall palm tree. Like sometimes just the concept of something being that high up does kind of give me the willies. And so I've been finding myself more and more watching these videos.
Are you addicted to the adrenaline?
Well, I mean, we'll get into it with the shows, but that's obviously obviously what the people who really do it, that's what they're doing. I feel like I'm getting addicted to the adrenaline of just thinking about it, just thinking about doing it. And I think that it probably...
From the safety of my couch, I'm an adrenaline junkie.
I think that the reality is the future probably holds less risk-taking than ever for me. I feel like you and I, we went skydiving, or not skydiving.
Nope.
We went ziplining, and this other sort of like miscellaneous kind of high up obstacle course thing where you're in a harness, but you still have to climb things and dangle and swing and whatnot.
A ropes course.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think I'll ever do that again. Some of the rides we went on at Coney Island last time, like some fairly intense roller coasters, which I always did growing up. I don't think I'm going to ever do that again. Like I see myself as...
Why? Wait, what makes you decide now at this point in your life to just nope out? You're like, my bones hurt too much to be on a roller coaster.
Because I did all those things when I was younger, and now, like I said, I'm kind of at the point where just looking at other people doing them, like gives me the willies.
So it gives you enough of the hit, you don't have to do it yourself.
Well, it more like I don't feel the need. Like I got pretty scared in the experiences I just mentioned, the rope course, the roller coasters and stuff. And not scared that I was going to die.
I can't do it.
Like I accept that it's like, there's no real risk in those situations, but it's more like, I don't even need to put myself through that again. Like, I feel like at this point, I probably don't even see that kind of stuff in my future. However, I feel like there's a solid, 10 to 20% chance that in a year or two from now, I will be skydiving. And this thing of watching the videos
10
is just...
10 to 20% is pretty low.
The first step.
You're talking about it in this very... this is going to happen kind of way, but you're saying 10 to 20%.
I'm saying I think there's a small but real chance that as I'm 45 now, maybe 46, I don't really know.
How old are you, babe?
As I'm getting to that point, like the characters in the shows we're going to talk about, where I might start to think that it's not enough to watch the videos and that my life has no meaning or that I'm not a real man or something.
Well, you would be just like our guy in ALF, Willie, right?
Exactly.
His whole thing is that it's his 45th birthday.
We're going to have all these sitcoms. They're going to give us these, pretty standard psychological reasons why people decide to go skydiving. But I think I can see it happening. I see the appeal. I could see the point where everyday life just does not provide enough excitement.
Oh, I am just waiting for the morning where you roll over and you're like, babe, it's the day. I'm going skydiving.
What are our shows? What did we watch?
We watched ALF Season 1, Episode 9, Jump. Herman's Head, Season 1, Episode 16, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Dying. Saved by the Bell, The College Years, Season 1, Episode 17, Love and Death. And The Neighborhood, Season 2, Episode 19, Welcome to the Jump.
Yeah, so starting with ALF, we've watched this furry fella a bunch of times now. We watched the pilot for our puppet-based sitcoms episode, and I was just now trying to remember, what was that crazy one with the guy in the witness protection program? Or
it was his colleague, and he was really annoying, but he was really lonely.
Yeah,
it was Run-Ins with the Mob.
Oh, yes, Run-Ins with the Mafia, right. So only the most serious, down-to-earth sitcom tropes apply to ALF, obviously. What can we say? This one starts with the Tanner family celebrating Willie's birthday. Willie's the dad, and we say it every time. This guy is the secret sauce of the show, much more than ALF himself.
Yeah, totally. Max
Wright, the actor that plays the dad, is just so funny. And this first scene where they're doing the birthday thing, he's blowing out the candles or whatever, and he gives each family member, the wife, the teenage daughter, the son, a kiss. And then Alf's like, give me a kiss. And he does it. Like, he gives the puppet a kiss on the cheek. And then he has this adorable, like, bashful little smile for the next, like, 15 seconds. It's just very, very funny.
And then he picks up his hanky and he daintily wipes his lips.
Yeah. But he's gonna give a speech, which was not normal in my house for like in a family dinner with just a nuclear family for your dad to get up and give a speech. But he does, and he says like, I've got everything I always wanted. I've got my beautiful wife and 2 lovely kids or whatever, and
an
Alf
alien.
Like, and an alien, yeah, and so it sort of establishes like that he's at this, much like myself, he's at this 45-year like midway point in life. He's very happy and content, but it's almost like that's sort of the seeds of his discontent.
Right. He starts to realize that maybe he's a little bit boring. So the next scene is the present exchange, and Alf is like, what do you mean the person whose birthday it is also gets the presents? Which I immediately resonated with me, because in the Netherlands, if it's your birthday, you take all your friends out to dinner. Like, you give the gift, really. They don't give you I mean, people can give you presents for your birthday,
a lot of times,
but when it's a birthday dinner, it's not your friends taking you out, you take your friends out.
I insist on cooking for my friends sometimes on my birthday, not so much anymore. But yeah, one little note here. Let's just start marking the fashions over this lineup, because there's some extreme ones. I don't know if this, I'm thinking more about hair in this case.
Yeah.
The mom's hair
oh my God.
in this show is
standing
truly
straight up.
Demented. Like, it is like, I don't know if you noticed in this present exchange scene, I started just laughing at nothing in particular and could not stop. I started focusing on her hair. This poor woman, like, this is a network sitcom. Her hair is being professionally styled.
Yeah, it wouldn't be able to stand up like that if it wasn't.
So the mom, she reminds me of the actress. She was Arnold Schwarzenegger's police partner in Kindergarten Cop, and she went on to play Leslie Knope's mom in
but
Parks and Rec.
Not her.
No, it's not her, but she's got that look.
She just has short
red hair, like kind of a round
did.
face. And so the way I would describe it is like, on top, it's like a big poof, like just a big pom-pom in all directions.
So she has bangs, right?
And there are
pretty,
bangs and there are bangs.
Right. Well, so she's got bangs and they're pretty thick. Like, she's got a good deep bang going on.
Bang.
Right? Yeah, she's got a deep bang happening. And what they did with that bang was the very 80s, early 90s thing that we all did, which is pull it straight up in the air and tease it and then spray it so that it stands there. Well, they just did a really good job, and she's got a deep bang. So it's like she's got this giant orange puffball on the top of her head that the ends of the puffball are spiky because they've sprayed it so much. So that's what's going on with her hair.
No, that's not all that's going on. Because that's the thing. That's only the first part. If it was all like that, if she just had like a Joan Jett crazy spiked out thing, then fine. Like a little weird for a suburban mom.
Yeah, it was the front.
It's the top. And then at about like I've got my hand like at the top of my ear, at about that level, it transitions to just being like a normal, like the lady I mentioned, or like Aunt Jackie and Roseanne, or a million other ladies
what I was just
that have short
they
hair.
They took her bangs that would have laid there normally and been a bob, and they spiked those bangs straight up in the air and teased them all out. So it like created all this fuzz around her face, and then spikes above the fuzz, and the rest of her hair they left straight.
It's like my rock star wig, you know, or like David Bowie in Labyrinth.
That rock star wig is the right period of time for this.
But that's the thing. When those guys didn't cut their hair like at their chin, that's what makes it so strange partially. It just looks like two completely different haircuts, like photoshopped onto the same person. It is something else.
Anyway, so it was gift time.
Yeah.
And so Alf, I guess, goes down to the basement and like grabs a box of something to be like, here's some old junk. Memories are good to have. It's, for a birthday present. Sorry, it's not like I could go out and shop. And so then they start looking through this box of all these old pictures and they're reminiscing. And it turns out that the mom has had this like really awesome life. She's dated some hunks, including Joe Namath.
Yeah. Well, this is really strange. She's had this very eventful love life. The daughter remarks, Mom, you really dated some hunks. But they name two specific examples. One is like just this guy that
hot guy in their school
that like ended up like they have something. Oh, he ended up doing some such thing. I didn't write it down.
He's like a marine biologist on some island, and they made him the king of that island.
Yeah, right. And then the next one is Joe Namath, and it's just like and I think they have a picture of him, and so it's planting
and her together,
It's planting the seeds of like part of Willie's
hey, how'd you end up with this guy kind of a thing.
Well, and just generally his sense of insecurity and his sense of lacking in manhood.
Well, and then in the box they find this old menu from this restaurant that they went on that they found, I guess, that they loved, and that they went on a bunch of early dates to this restaurant. Well, on this menu they had written their like life to-do lists, right?
Their goals.
Exactly. Things that they wanted to accomplish in their life. And hers was like run with the bulls and, a bunch of different like random, very cool things. Get published in some, paper or whatever. Yeah. And she had done all of those things. And the kids are like, wow, Mom, that's so great. And he's like, honey, I'm so proud of you. And then they're like, Dad, where's your list? And he finds his list, which is on a different page in the menu. And he's done none of the things.
Yeah, well, he only has two things on his list. Build a better mousetrap and complete that skydive.
Yes.
And so, those are perplexing to Alf, to everybody, I guess he explains. And then Alf finds him later on, like up in the middle of the night, trying to build a mousetrap.
Yeah, tinkering with that mousetrap that he's been trying to build for 25 years.
Yeah, and so Alf gives him this pep talk that sort of demoralizes him, where he's like, Willie, you've got nothing to prove. You've got this great life here. It's completely safe. You don't have to worry about anything because your life is so predictable that nothing could ever go wrong. And, and you have nothing to worry about because your life is so safe and boring.
Yeah.
And so that sort of is like the last straw that sends Willie spiraling. He has a dream.
He goes to bed and says to his wife, honey, do you think I'm, predictable and safe? And she's like, absolutely. That's why I'm with you. Yeah. Like, I married you because you had those qualities. Right. And that doesn't make him feel any better. So then he falls asleep and has this dream.
Yeah. The dream is a graduation.
Right.
But it's just a graduation. There's just like an old guy with a mustache.
Well, it's like their college graduation because these are all guys that she had dated in college.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. So there's this guy like officiating it. He kind of looks like Vincent Price, but he's not.
Yeah.
And it's just this way for Willie's psyche to parade in front of him these guys that have like cucked him.
Well, I don't know about that because he was like they came before.
Yeah,
they don't make him a cuck.
No, but they've like outdone him in life, or so he thinks, by being more exciting.
Right, by being the like king of some random island, and Joe Namath, who and so we get pretty great football player.
Yes, in classic sort of late 80s, early 90s sitcom fashion, we get the real Joe Namath in a cameo here.
Yes, this is when he was doing all those commercials,
yeah,
right?
He had a cereal, I think, or maybe he was like the official Wheaties or one of the main guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of the main Wheaties guys.
But Willie, again, Max Wright is hilarious when he like pals up to Joe Namath. He's like, "Oh, Joe, you done awfully well for yourself." He's just like falling all over him. It's just like, "Oh, you done so good.
Will you sign this for my son?"
Yeah. Yeah. And then what happens?
He said, Joe Namath signs it. Tell your, hi, Brian, which is the son. Tell your mother I said hi.
yeah. Which that's a little aggressive, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so, he wakes up, right, and declares to the wife, I'm going to skydive, right? And then we get, I guess, is this a trope we can track, or is this the only one that does it? The sort of like practice jumping on chairs in the basement.
Yeah, I don't think any of the other ones there definitely was like discussion of how to land in the other ones.
I feel like
this one you're right.
I feel like John Ritter did this in the Fear of Flying episode. He was practiced on chairs, or one of the characters did. But I also wanted to mention this takes place, as a lot of these scenes do, in their basement, right? Willie, the dad, he's the science guy. Just continuing from the Student Radio's podcast, the old-timey analog equipment. Like, I just love all these old computer monitors, and it's got like old weather equipment everywhere, just analog gizmos and gadgets and screens and keyboards and stuff all over the place. I really like this set. So he's practicing, and I don't know. It's just sort of like we're sort of on that course.
He's trying to remember that you like tuck and roll or whatever, like land, tuck and roll, so that way you don't break your legs. And that's what he was practicing. And so his son comes out and he's practicing with him. And then at that point, I think somebody realizes like, wait, you're really going to go skydiving? Like, I wasn't even paying attention when you said that. It blew right by me. And he's like, yeah, I've got to complete something on this list. Yeah. And his wife's like, well, do that. That's great if you want to do that, but you don't have to do that to prove anything to anyone. Yeah.
And so let's just track it now. This is, one of the key sort of psychological motives we're going to get for Willie. Right. It's all about, what would you say? It's kind of weird because it's like, I guess,
it's a midlife crisis. Yeah. It's like, I didn't accomplish everything I was going to accomplish by this age. I've settled. I'm boring. I don't have anything ahead of me.
We didn't really mention his goal was to complete that skydive because he tried and failed.
Yeah,
he went on this trip with 4 other people and didn't go.
Right.
So that's what makes it almost like a little bit of a mixed metaphor, because part of it is just like following through and finishing the thing that I said I was going to do and never did.
Right.
And part of it is being as interesting as Joe Namath.
Yeah.
So I guess, those are
like,
the two.
I'm never going to be as interesting as Joe Namath, but at least I can do the goals I set out for myself.
Yeah, because I guess the way he sees himself now is he's a quitter and he's boring.
Right.
And just,
or just that he never accomplished his goals.
Yeah. And, everyone is trying to point out, like, but what if your goals were like to have a family and a nice house and all that? And he's not having it. So he does the skydiving by himself, not by himself, but not with any of the other characters.
They only put him on the plane.
Yeah. So we should mention this. I feel like only one of the shows, I think, gets right this legal thing that any novice skydiver has to be attached to another skydiver. Right. So that's just something that all of these are sort of, assuming that you don't know, and they probably don't know either, that you can't just go up as some middle-aged guy and be like, I'd like a parachute.
I'd like to jump out of a plane, please. Yeah.
But so, I feel like we're going to have different approaches to the way you film skydiving on a sitcom, but to an extent, I think all 4 of these shows have a lot in common about the way they do it. I feel like they all get a real plane and either bring a big chunk of a real small airplane to a set or bring cameras to a real airplane. I don't think, except for one very notable exception, I don't think they're ever in the sky. But I think that basically all of these, starting with ALF, are being filmed by taking their video cameras to an actual airplane and filming inside them, just stationary, obviously, and faking the noise outside, because you don't like, there's an authenticity to these little planes. They don't feel like the planes in the Fear of Flying episode or the airports in the various episodes that take place in airports. Like, they don't feel like a sitcom set version. They feel like planes.
Cramped. Yeah, they absolutely feel cramped.
And they've just got the real accoutrement. Like, I don't know. They just feel real.
Well, I think probably what's more likely is that they have those plane sets, right? Where it's like just part of the plane with the open door, and that is like a little set that they just have.
Yeah, I think it might. Yeah, I think that's
because that way they could film it from, you know, one side or the other, from either the front of the plane or the back of the plane, but the tube in the middle, no matter where the camera is, so which would mean that there would be no tail and no front. Yeah,
anyway, I feel like they all have that in common, and then they maybe take different approaches to how they depict what happens after you jump out of the airplane. But we're going to get the definite subtrope of the person who has resolved to go skydiving, questioning their fortitude.
Right. At the last minute, like, oh, nope, can't do it, not going to do it, can't do it.
Yeah. Now, in this case, like I said, there's no other ALF characters. It's just Willie and this instructor guy.
Right.
And this is, I feel like, another definite subtrope is the person deciding that they're not going to go and then accidentally jumping or getting pushed or something.
Oh, yeah, that's 100% a thing that happens in many of these episodes.
So in this one, the joke is just like he's hemming and hawing.
I'm not going to do it.
I don't want to plummet. And the guy can't hear him. And he goes, what? And then he just kind of takes a second and then just basically says, like, screw it.
He's like, what the hell? And just jumps out because the other, like, 2 or 3 guys that are on the plane jump before him. And he's like, whatever. Yeah. And he just goes.
So this is really probably the most straightforward of all of the sort of teeter-tottering and soul-searching and stuff, where he's just like, I'm scared, I don't want to, well, okay, I will. And then he goes, and he hops out. And yeah, the studio audience applauds the B-roll that they cut to. That's how they do it in this show.
Yeah, and they applaud just him jumping in general.
Willie comes home with a certificate.
Yes.
To validate his skydiving
to put in the
success.
Memory box of all his wife's ex-hotties.
Yeah. And so that's it, like, mission accomplished. It's funny that this one, you would think the sort of family sitcom lesson would be like, at the end of the day, you don't need to jump out of an airplane.
Does ALF ever teach a lesson? I mean, maybe in that crazy Christmas special.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Other than that.
Yeah, no, it's funny. They do, like, just his whole journey, the dad, of like, oh, I'm intimidated because my wife dated Joe Namath. And
Even though I've known that for years.
Yeah, I had these silly goals on a menu that I didn't fulfill. Like, you would think the point would be like, oh, get over it, buddy. Like, they're telling him at the beginning, like, you have a beautiful wife with a crazy haircut and your kids and this house. Like, don't worry about it. But no, like, the moral seems to be like, sometimes you need to prove yourself by skydiving.
Take a few risks. No big deal.
All right, let's move on to Herman's Head.
Season 1, episode 16, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Dying.
Yeah, Herman's Head is another one we've covered several times. This is a guilty pleasure of mine from childhood. It's, what if the Pixar movie Inside Out was an extremely crass early 90s sitcom on Fox with several of the Simpsons cast members. We always, we love Herman's Head as much as it's often not that good. I feel like we've discussed before how the sort of the makings of a good Herman's Head episode is when they use the concept, which are the 4 people in his mind, his lust, anxiety, compassion, and intellect, to kind of like really, use them well in the story and making decisions and stuff. And a lot of times they end up just cutting to them for funny little sight gags. And it's just kind of like a random workplace sitcom about a guy that works in a publishing house with a woman who's a virgin and a woman who is like a gold digging harlot. Like, it really, the show wears its misogyny on its sleeve. And And, this episode is going to be no exception. So
That's true.
What do we set our stage here?
Okay, so this time you've got, again, William Ragsdale, who plays Herman. He's just, trying to make it in the tough, cutthroat publishing industry, and he wants to be a writer. And his buddy Jay, who's already a writer, comes in and is like,
Hank Azaria.
Hank Azaria. He's like, hey, man, the big boss has asked me to go skydiving with him for this skydiving story I'm doing. So you should come with because it'll really, show this boss who you are, and that'll be great. And so he says, okay. Meanwhile, everybody who works in his department, which is research, is completely inundated because there's been a merger. And so there's all of these extra magazine articles now that are part of this company that the research department has to fact check. So while he's off trying to get a promotion, he's leaving his coworkers with a ton of extra work.
Yeah. So this episode, like many, is going to focus on this big boss character, Mr. Crawford. Now, I'm going to put forth right now a theory I just came up with. I'm going to call it the Crawford hypothesis. And this is going pretty deep for the
hypothesis.
Sure. This is going pretty deep for the Herman's heads. So I apologize for all of the
Who even are you out there?
Is there a point where Mr. Crawford starts getting more screen time than Mr. Bracken? And if the statement I just said makes no sense to you, the reason why that would be controversial is because Mr. Bracken is Herman's immediate supervisor. He's the head of the publishing department. He's part of the main cast. Yeah. He's played by this very beloved character actor who is in the TV series V back in the day. You'd recognize him from a million things. And he is supposed to be the boss.
Right.
At some point, fairly early on, they introduce this character of Mr. Crawford, who's the boss of the whole company, and his whole thing...
And he's a psychopath.
Yes. His whole thing is he's a total loose cannon, he's sexist, he's a homophobe, he's a total... when they were making the apologies for Harvey Weinstein and they kept going, oh, he's a dinosaur, he's just a dinosaur. That's the kind of person he is, just totally trapped in early 20th century sexual politics and everything. But they liked using that character so much because every time they have him on, it's just an excuse for them to be able to say all these horrible things, make every sexist joke. In this episode, the million times he says namby-pamby sissy lady, go put on a dress, you lipstick wearing, poodle having Mary Sue.
Okay, yeah. But kind of like Dr. Cox in Scrubs.
Well, yes, but that's a real character that's fleshed out.
Yes, 100%.
And he's meant to be a real character. He is a cast regular from the start. What I'm saying is that...
No, I mean in that he's talking, calling everybody girls' names when he doesn't get what he wants.
Yes, in the 90s and early 2000s, we loved doing that, absolutely.
So, but so Mr. Crawford, okay, keep going.
Well, and so I'm just saying that as I'm thinking back on all these Herman's Head episodes, so many of them, as time goes on, start to rely more and more on Crawford coming in, being this force of nature, but also obviously they liked this actor, they thought he was funny, they thought the character was funny, and just having this guy come on and, the humor of him saying all these horrible things is something that they felt really worked.
Yeah, well, he's also, he sets off Mr. Bracken. Yes. So it makes it look like even though Bracken's a hard-ass boss, he's the hard-ass boss that understands and, is
because Bracken is very smart.
Yeah, and gets it and understands his people. And so it's it's the thing that allows the audience to understand why Herman continues to stay in research.
Well, that's true. And also, Herman is portrayed as just this sort of I don't know what to do. That's his whole thing. And so of course, you know, there are some things you can get out of Mr. Bracken being like, Herman, I would like you to do this assignment.
Right.
But it is much more entertaining to have this guy be like, Herman, jump out of the plane with me. Which is exactly
I want
what
to do
happened.
this today. Which is, he's a total agent of chaos when he comes in. But it's interesting that you would say, does he get more screen time over the course of the series? And I would say no. I think that when he is in an episode, he's heavily featured. And that episode revolves around his shenanigans.
Yeah.
And but he wasn't in enough episodes to outpace Mr. Bracken, who was just always there.
Yeah, I wonder. I just feel like Mr. Bracken gets his predictable like 6 or 7 minutes per episode, and Crawford
and then,
is like more
also
and more.
Has some about like the one with his divorce and the
Yes,
one
the
where
one with his
Herman
daughter.
dates his daughter. Yeah, there's definitely a few that kind of center on him in a way that but on those stories, generally those stories when you've got him at the center, Bracken at the center, there's less going on with Herman. Herman's got some group thing happening.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I wanted to put forth the Crawford hypothesis. He is going to be a key factor in this. Yeah. So this is one where, at least initially, and maybe it'll change over the course of the episode, but unlike the ALF thing, Herman has no interest or, he has no investment in this skydiving
He
thing.
never would have even occurred to him had it not just landed on his desk. And he's like, Jay sort of twists his arm and he doesn't want to go, but he's going because he's going to support his buddy Jay, because, Jay's like, I need you there, man. I need you there. And so he goes, and then Jay chickens out.
Yeah. He can't stomach the skydiving. I also want to say, as they're making, as Herman is first presented with this whether or not to go skydiving, we do get a good brain people scene. Like, I just wanted to clock that. Not that it's like one for the ages, but there's this stalemate because the anxiety obviously doesn't want to go skydiving,
right.
And the compassion doesn't want to, I feel like, for one reason or another.
She's just sort of, is that the best choice? I don't think it's,
Oh, no, she wants to help the friends. She wants to help the other workers who are, like you said, inundated with work.
Right.
And the whole point, as the intellect points out, is we need to do this to get ahead in our career. So he's thinking of it from that point of view.
And he convinces Lust to get on his side.
Yes. But this got me thinking, they should have had 5 people in there, because if you're going to have it be like a democracy, you're going to get a stalemate all the time with these 2-2, decisions. But in any case,
No, but that's what makes it fun, is that they have to like band together and tie up anxiety so they can eventually do this.
Yes, which is what they do. But yeah, I feel like, we of course get them throughout the episode, but I kind of feel
they
like...
have to form alliances, Jay, just like the Big Brother house.
But that beginning part was kind of the most we really get of them, I feel like.
Yeah.
And then, we're on the plane. We get lots of gay panic stuff when they're on the plane, where Herman's hanging on to Jay, and Jay's like, people get the wrong idea or something. I feel like there's 3 or 4 jokes like that.
Oh yeah, and that's also Mr. Crawford's whole thing. Like, anybody who won't jump out is namby-pamby. Anybody isn't, you're a Nancy. You're, stop being such a girl. All this stuff. If you won't jump out of the plane, so Jay freaks out. Campbell jumps.
Yeah. Well, we should say the reason why he freaks out in part is because Crawford gets this great monologue where just before he goes out, he's like, all right, boys, get ready for that thrill. There's nothing like it. You're plummeting to the ground at 120 miles an hour. You pull your chute, but nothing happens. It feels like an eternity before that thing ever opens up. You don't know if you're going to make it. He's just getting more and more, into it, this whole poetic description. And then, that's finally what gets Jay to
Jay's like,
out.
Nope, I'm out. And so then Herman is like, what do you mean you're out? Like, you wouldn't let me say no. Every time I tried to tell him I didn't want to do this, you interrupted me and, in saying you're saving my job. And now, you're not going. What do you mean you're not going? I can't believe you dragged me up here. And Jay grabs him by the straps of his parachute backpack and shakes him and is like, can't you see I'm terrified? Can't you see I just don't want to go? Well, whatever. They're having this little argument. And then he lets go and a piece flies off of Herman's parachute backpack, and then all of a sudden, whoop, out behind him, his parachute goes, and it sucks him out the door.
Yes, which you pointed out would probably kill you in real life, opening the parachute in the plane.
Right, because it would
being
immediately
sucked
get
out.
sucked into one of the engines, and that would be it. You'd be shredded.
Yeah, but this one I feel like doesn't give us any even B-roll, like
No.
stock footage.
Which I appreciated.
Yeah.
I don't need that.
No, but it is just funny, like, just having your whole show be about a thing that you are not depicting at all.
Yeah, because it's
camera.
fake even when you do depict it, so who cares?
Yeah.
So anyway, the next thing we see is they're like at the office the next day or something, and Herman is the conquering hero. Jay's been taken off the article.
He doesn't have a certificate. Like
no,
Riley.
he doesn't. But he's now been promoted to a writer. He's writing the skydiving article. Jay's not writing the skydiving article. Sensitivity's going all crazy in the brain because, she's like, we screwed over our friend and it was an accident. We should come clean. We should tell the truth. And look, our friends are all dying here back in our office. And every day we come back to the office, we see all of the other office workers just sort of laying on their very busy desks and the phone's ringing off the hook. And they're all in the same clothes that they were wearing the day before, like they'd been there for 2 days straight.
Yeah. And we get another decision-making scene, because Crawford is going to, basically tell her, and he's going to ask him to go skydiving again.
On the third day, right? He's like, oh man, your article is so great. It makes me want to go back up there. So we're going again tomorrow.
It might even be before that. It might even be when he's just asking him, like, do you like skydiving? Like, whatever it is, when the brain characters are making the decision of, like, are we going to keep lying to Crawford and keep presenting as this thrill seeker when we really don't like it? And the way that intellect wins over lust's vote is, again, that trope we love so much. The pretty ladies who don't speak
right.
because they're not paying the actresses the, day player rate or whatever.
Right.
They're featured extras.
They walk in with big hair and a bodycon dress and they smile.
Yeah. So we get these 3 ladies that are just like bequeathed to the lust character that just like go onto his arm and is like, there you go. That's the reason.
Because when we're a famous writer, we'll have lots of money and ladies like money and fame.
Yes. So that is how the intellect again wins over the lust's vote to continue to lie to Crawford and say that he likes skydiving and he's willing to go skydiving.
And that he'll
again.
write the article and it'll be great. And then,
yeah. And so how does this happen? Jay wants another chance?
Yeah. So again, the article was so good that it made Crawford say, oh, I want to feel that rush. What you were describing was exactly what you were, exactly what I felt. And then we get they read a little excerpt of the article and it is, just Herman's absolute fear coming out of like when he was plummeting and he was so scared. And so, so Crawford's like, that was everything. I got to go again. And then Jay comes in and is like, Herman, you got to take me up with you. You got to go to bat for me. I went to bat for you. You got to get me another chance with Crawford. I can't stand this. He's got me on a shuffleboard article. I can't do this. And so he's like, oh, okay. And so he goes to bat for him and he gets him up there and Crawford goes to jump and then Jay goes, nope, can't do it. Not doing it. Doing it.
At some point, Herman confronts Mr. Crawford and says, like, I'm not going to do this, and gives this whole speech about like, if you really want me to be a writer,
that's why they're
you,
in the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's like, if you really want me to be a writer for you, you should want me for my mind, for my talent, not for my willingness to jump out of an airplane.
Yeah.
Right. And like Crawford thinks that over for a second and goes like, you're nothing but a namby-pamby sissy wussy man.
Yeah, girl. And then he jumps and then Jay's like, fuck it. And then he jumps and then Herman is like, fuck it. And then he jumps. And so they all basically do the same thing that happened in ALF. Was that they don't want to go, but they're like, whatever, I'm here. I got to go.
Yeah. I feel like, don't they get like, is there another conversation between the brain people where like it starts to become a little bit about pride and like manhood?
Well, it becomes just a little bit about like, like what you were talking about before, this idea of being able to conquer your own fears.
Yeah.
And like, you know what? We did it once. We survived. We can do this. And it's the intellect who is not usually the one that's like, you know, we can do it. He's the one that keeps putting on the goggles inside the brain and being like, we're going and just and doing it.
A lot of the humor in Herman's head is just funny costumes for the characters inside his brain. And so, yeah, he has that like aviator's helmet. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you could say the intellect would be the one that would object to it because it's not smart maybe to jump out of a plane.
Yeah, objectively unsafe. Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, he's just like professionally minded. But I guess I wanted to pose this question. I guess I'll ask it now. Like, do we have a sense of how dangerous it actually is to do this, like to skydive in some sort of a professionally supervised way? In one of the later shows, or no, in this show, because Bracken has all the research at his disposal, somebody's going to say, oh, how many people actually die doing that? And he goes, 22 last year. Like, do we get a sense of, is this one of those things where the risk is just kind of an illusion like the bungee jump, or is this like, no, you actually might die?
No, well, so to me, I think of skydiving sort of in the same vein of riding in a small plane, right? Those small planes, they crash all the time. You always hear about that. I've known 3 different people in my life who have died in small plane crashes. And I think that it is, you know, it's one of those things that it does happen more often than you would think in like a professional and kind of supposedly safe situation. But also it's relatively safe. And there's still more that, you know, are fine and everything's fine and nothing goes wrong.
Oh, more survive than die? Okay.
You know, I mean, but it's what I'm saying is like, it's not close. It's not like a 50-50 situation. You know, it's more like you're pretty solid 10 to 20%. And I think that's probably, if I had to venture a guess, that would be my guess, that it wouldn't be around a 1% or a 0.001%.
Sure.
It would be more like a 10.
Yeah. 10% sounds high. 10% fatality?
10% some shit goes wrong.
That still seems high. I don't know. Like, you're really playing Russian roulette if it's 1 in 10. But anyway, so this one's fine. I mean, look, this is very cartoonish, very sitcom-y, right? The whole notion that your boss is going to decide that he wants you to go skydiving and, you know, the way to get ahead in your career is to do that. Very silly. Like, I might even venture to say it makes the ALF soul searching seem more like down to earth. But yeah, tracking the motivations, we've gone from this sort of internal insecurity to peer pressure, basically, just like professional.
Okay. Going from the other way around, you've got unfinished goals, unmet goals, and you have just, you know, wanting to get ahead at work.
Yeah, exactly. But with Crawford specifically, it takes on this form of like schoolyard bullying as well. But all right.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Let's see how this all continues. Speaking of the schoolyard, with Saved by the Bell, The College Years.
Season 1, episode 17, Love and Death.
Yeah, we talked about the college years one time before on our college professors episode where we met the super sexy Professor Lasky, right?
Yes.
The anthropology professor that assigned Zack to make a video about like what women, how to seduce women on campus or something
like that. Yeah. Well, so now we're post Lasky because he and Kelly dated.
Yeah.
And then that fell apart. As you know, those like professor-student relationships usually last.
Yeah.
And so now we're in the era of Zack and Kelly again.
Yeah. And this is, I think, basically the last episode before the final sort of arc of the series, right? This is like 2 or 3 from the end.
Yeah.
And then there's like, you know, because you could tell it's already brewing. I mean, obviously the entirety of Saved by the Bell is Zack and Kelly. But, you know, apart from the whole skydiving thing in this, they're dealing with this thing of like Kelly deciding whether or not she wants to commit to Zack
and say,
forever.
I love you. Yeah.
The I love you thing I thought was weird.
Well, but that's the way they are doing like the sitcom version of like, if you say, I love you, then that means you're getting married.
Yeah, but they've been saying I love you for years on the show.
Have they?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they said I love you when they were dressed as Romeo and Juliet.
And they were
at the prom.
And the prom and everything else.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. I don't know. Like I get her like indecision. I just thought that was a weird way to present it, but I guess like you're saying, they're just kind of keeping it simple. But anyway, we don't have Professor Lasky. Instead, we have Professor
Rich.
Yes, Professor Rich. This is his last day before he's leaving on a sabbatical.
Yes.
Right? Now, this is
what
not...
most professors do in the middle of a semester.
Yeah. Now, this is not a hunky professor with the feathery hair and everything.
No, this is a toad-looking professor.
Yes, this is this is a character actor that, we've seen all over. This strumpy
he always
little
plays a
old
grumpy
guy.
old man, yeah.
Yeah. Or sometimes a jolly old man.
Oh,
I feel
really?
like. Yeah,
Okay.
I think he could be kind of like jolly and fun sometimes. Yeah, he's this older guy, but not really that old, notably. He's talking about, I'm going to go, to the pyramids at Giza and this and that or whatever. And he's kind of presenting himself as this citizen of the world.
Well, and they all are obsessed with him. They think he's like the greatest professor ever because he tells these amazing stories. He makes history come to life. And it's because of his amazing adventures that he's able to do that.
But I did appreciate this casting. Maybe they just knew they'd be pushing it by getting another Patrick Fabian type. But like in real life, like there are professors that you look up to and stuff, but they're usually, craggly little old guys like this. Like they don't always have to be like
the young hunky guy.
Yeah, like the guy in Boy Meets World, with the long hair and the talks with the Joey Buttafuoco accent.
Right.
But yeah, so I appreciated that this guy just looked like a normal college professor, but did like have the sort of allegiance of his students because they thought he was this really interesting guy. We get, the same old Saved by the Bell dynamic that they used to have with Mr. Belding, where when they say, we wanted to get to, see you one more time, he goes, no problem. I'll just come to your dorm later on.
Yeah, I'll stop by your room later. And, because the boys' dorm is their room, they're all roommates together, the three boys in one room. And then the girls have a connecting door next door. So like the three girls all live in one room next door to each other, and they've got the connecting door, which is just like so random and weird and would not happen.
Yeah. Teachers and administrators in Saved by the Bell, no problem being in the bedrooms of students at any
all.
age.
So he's going to come over, and they're all planning to do a big surprise party. So Zack pushes everybody into the girls' room, and then he welcomes the professor in, and then
the professor comes in just to add on the thing of hanging out with your students outside of class. He walks into Zack's dorm room with a cigar.
Yes.
Not lit, I noticed, but seeming like he was going to light it up any second.
Sure, yeah, because he knew he was walking into a surprise party. So he walks in and he's like, hey, I'm really glad to get this moment to hang out with you. I just, wanted to tell you I'm not who you think I am. I never lived any of those adventures I've told you about. I just dreamed about them and wanted to do them. And so, I normally just hang out at my sister's house in Kansas.
Yeah, he starts confessing all of his history of fake sabbaticals while Zack is like, that's weird. And meanwhile, there's this whole party full of people hiding in the room next door. And so Zack goes like, very interesting. Hang on a moment. And goes into the bedroom next door. And what does he say? He doesn't cancel the surprise.
No, he says forget about the cake because they were going to try to wait because Screech had ruined the cake. Right. So they were going to try to wait on the surprise and get Zack to stall him for a little while. But he's like, guys, he needs some cheering up. We're not going to stall him. So let's just go. Forget about the cake.
The important thing is to get Zack away from this professor character for a few seconds.
12 seconds.
Yeah.
And then so when they go back in the room, the professor's sitting there on the couch with his cigar in his hand and his hand resting
pulling
on his chin.
Full-on Weekend at Bernie's.
That's right. And he is fully dead.
Yeah. He's doing the classic sitting on a couch like nothing is wrong, but you're actually
And then the minute
dead.
someone bumps him, he like his arms fly up in the air and he flops over on the couch and everyone's like, ah, he was dead.
Yeah. And so, Screech does finally show up, and I noticed he has the same cake that my friend Liz had for her 30th birthday, the like Egyptian pyramid
Oh,
cake.
nice.
Screech shows up and everyone's like, you're too late, he died. And so, then we get, not where you might expect this story's going when you click on the Saved by the Bell College Years episode.
Totally. I was like, how are we going to get to skydiving from a dead professor? What are we doing here?
I mean, I could kind of see how you would get there, but...
I've watched enough Saved by the Bell to know.
Well, it's more like I've watched enough things about men contemplating their mortality and their limitations to know how something like this ends
I'm a little worried about how much men contemplating their existence and mortality. How deep into the incel dark web have you gone?
There's no. Zach is the opposite of an incel. What he is? He's a sexed up ladies man. I'm not saying he's a great guy, but anyway.
Where are we going with this?
They have a funeral. And so this is very funny. I was a little incredulous that these kids are in college now, and we get the impression that to most of them, the funeral is this completely new thing.
Didn't somebody die drunk driving the night they all got in trouble for drunk driving?
No, that you're mixing up your
my after school specials.
Yeah, Saved by the Bell never did anything that extreme.
Well, they definitely had the drunk driving.
They had the drunk driving, but but Kelly
Nobody
got
died.
bumped in the noggin.
Oh, that's what it was.
I think Slater couldn't play in the football game because his
he hurt his elbow
leg
or something.
got twisted or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they even Slater goes, "Have you ever been to a funeral before?" And they're like, "No, this will be my first one."
Yeah,
and I'm
Slater
like, "What's
goes,
happening?"
What are you supposed to do? Like, he hasn't even seen one on TV. Like, he doesn't.
Right.
He wants to know, like, what is the protocol for a funeral? Screech dresses as Dracula, right?
Right, because he didn't have any other black.
Which
he says.
I think is actually a pretty good gag. I have to say,
Except for why did he have to wear Kelly's heels? They were like making this whole thing about him wearing Kelly's heels.
That was dumb. I agree. I didn't really get that, but just the humor of, because they eventually call it out, but not at first. So just the fact of like Zack and Slater in these black suits and Screech with the Dracula cape and everything is just very funny. While we're on the subject, just continuing the sort of fashion watch, Screech is dressed super weird in this episode prior to the Dracula
isn't he
thing.
always dressed weird?
Yeah,
that's sort of his thing.
It is, but in a way that's like, Saved by the Bell always had those like cartoon nerds, right? The like Poindexter
the,
nerds.
Loud patterns that clash.
Right. Now, Screech never did that. You always kind of got the impression, at least I did, that they almost kind of let Dustin Diamond dress himself in ways that he thought were cool and just kind of let the chips fall where they may. Like, the way that he's dressed, I'd say in a lot of the later half of Saved by the Bell, but definitely in this, is like... It is sort of like the way teenagers were dressing in the 90s, but just the most loud version of it.
Like version of that.
He's wearing yellow pants, like bright yellow pants. And he's got this shirt that's like, he likes to wear those sort of blousy, silky shirts, kind of like Zach would, or like you would say a Parker Lewis vomit shirt.
Yeah.
Kind of like along those lines, but with the very sort of geometric, very bold colors, kind of like a Keith Haring painting or something.
Yeah.
It's this weird thing of like, it doesn't seem like they're going for super nerdy. It's like they're going for like a sort of outlandish version of what the stylish kids in the 90s like we're doing. It's just like, I don't know what to make of it. And it comes across as extreme is all I'm saying. The yellow, the dots and lines and patterns and everything. Just a lot going on with Screech before he dresses up as Dracula to go to a teacher's funeral. And then we get more of that drama with Zack and Kelly. of like, oh, I know this isn't the place and all because Mr. Rich just died, but like, I love you. And what is he actually trying to get her to, just to say I love you? Or is he trying to get her to agree to marriage at this point?
No. He wants her to be his girlfriend and like be serious in a serious relationship.
It's wild that they're still doing that story.
But so there's like a reason, because she had just been a couple episodes dating this Lasky guy, and then he dumped her and like broke her heart, and she was like, that's it, like I could never date again or whatever. And so she's just sort of been like falling back in her comfort zone with Zack. And he is like, after this happens with Professor Rich, he is just like, oh my God, I can't end up like that guy. I got to lock down the girl I love, and I got to do all these things. And so he is like, I want you to be my girlfriend. Don't you understand that I love you?
Much like Willie and Alf, he has twofold goals. Instead of build a mousetrap and finish the skydive, it's marry or like,
lock down Kelly,
go steady with the woman I love, and go skydiving.
Well, or just, and the skydiving
just
thing.
Just do something meaningful.
Right. He just kept, and what was the in-between thing that he was like, some prank, he pulled some prank or something at the college where it was like, you could tell.
He rappels down the side
of the building.
Building, like Tom Cruise Mission Impossible style, and comes in through the window, and everyone gives him a little applause or whatever, and he's like, thank you, I am now an adventurous man.
Yeah, well, and he did something else too, and the dean is played by Holland Taylor, and she's like, hold on a minute, I need to scare you by saying I will suspend you. And he was like, whatever. And she was like, no.
Yeah, he's got the attitude kind of like the guy in Office Space after he gets hypnotized. He's just like cruising now, nothing bothers him or intimidates him.
And so, Kelly's like, this is ridiculous. Just because a guy died doesn't mean you have to like go skydiving. And she says it like as a joke, like you don't have to prove that you're living life to its fullest by doing all these crazy things. Like, and me telling you I can't tell you I love you, like, because now he's basically like, I have nothing left to live for anyway if Kelly doesn't love me. So like, whatever. And she's just like, you got to stop. And he's like, ooh, skydiving. That's a great idea.
Yeah. So she inadvertently gives him the idea for skydiving. Screech is immediately on board, just as Zack's like lackey.
Right.
And then they go to Slater, and they're like, well, why not, let's make it 3. Let's all go skydiving. And we get some more great 90s, mentality here, where Zack is like, come on, Slater, aren't you a tough guy or something? And Screech is like, yeah, Slater, I looked up to you so much. You're so, like tough and imposing.
I'd always say, what would Slater do?
Yeah, and Slater's like, really? That's how you think of me? And he's like, well, that's how I used to think of you. If I acted like you do now, I'd be a total girly man.
Yeah, because this whole episode, he's been a little like squeamish about many things.
Well, and in general, I think we're supposed to understand he's dating Alex, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I think I don't know, they always give Slater the sort of like extreme woman to like be his romantic partner. And so, I think they're just also saying he's just kind of like settled down and domesticated. He's not like, up to his old tricks as much. And so, I love when Slater just says like totally earnestly, I guess I have gotten a little wimpy, the way somebody might say like, oh, I have put on a few pounds.
Right. I've gotten a little wimpy in the last few weeks.
Yeah. And so they decide to all go skydiving, and we get more B-roll. We get footage of the airplane, and then we get the scene in the plane. This is how it all ties together.
Right. Where
Zack calls, or like they get a phone call from Kelly.
Right. Kelly has gone to the airport to use the air traffic controller radio tower to get in touch with them to say, you don't have to jump out of a plane. I do love you. Like, don't jump out of a plane just because you don't think I love you. Like, I love you. I'm sorry that it took me so long to say it, whatever.
Yeah, and this, again, talk about the gay panic. The whole, like, conceit behind this scene is Zack is, like, perched about to jump out of the airplane, and you have this, like, instructor, facilitator guy who's relaying all of this. So every time, he's
like, I love you.
Yeah, every time, Kelly goes like, tell him I just want to hold him forever. The guy, like, looks at us in the audience and looks at Zack like, how in the heck am I supposed to say this to this guy? And then the same thing with Zack saying, you tell her, and then it'll always be the guy, like, paraphrasing, Kelly going like, oh, Zack, you've made me the happiest woman in the world. And he says, she says 10-4, just there's a bunch of stuff like that. And then, is this another accidental jump or do they jump willingly? Because I feel like this is one where Zack's like, yeah, I don't need to jump. I love my life. I've got the woman. I've got a woman. I don't want to risk my life jumping out of an airplane. And then the airplane just kind of tips over midair and dumps out the three of them. Zack, Slater, and Screech fall out of the airplane.
And then they all jump out and they're all like hooked together. And that's when you have
this is wild.
The crazy B-roll that I thought you were talking about earlier with the guy who is another skydiver as the cameraman or the camera person filming these like stunt divers who are mouthing dialogue as though they are the characters.
This is wild. So to be clear, because we're throwing around, we're saying B-rolls, stock. Most of the time, when the footage that we see, if we see anything, it's stock footage.
Right.
It's just
from far away, from another plane.
It's the stuff that I grab off of Pond 5 or Shutterstock all the time for my work. Type in skydivers and grab it. This is stuff that they shot for this of, like you're saying,
of stunt divers. Who were dressed like in the exact same getup, and they went and they are literally mouthing the lines, like yelling at each other.
Yes, the ADR'd,
dialogue.
Yeah, and I mean, it had us convinced for a while. We were like, is this episode of Saved by the Bell the original Mission Impossible, Fallen Angel or whatever the hell it's called, where like, we go skydiving on our show if that's what the character does.
But I was just like shocked that they would even spend the money to do stunt divers.
But I mean, you think about it, like, I'm sure it was not
like the show was about to get canceled.
Yeah, well, maybe that was it. Maybe they're like, well, we scrapped the last 8 episodes.
We're gonna blow our budget somehow.
I mean, you got to figure, they're not having the cast do it, so they don't have any of the training or insurance or anything like that. But
they would still have insurance for stunt divers.
I guess. I feel like at that point, it almost is like basically the cost of what it costs you in real life to do one of these adventures, to go skydiving.
Yeah.
But that was impressive. Definitely the only time in any of these 4 shows that we actually have footage of skydivers, albeit not the real actors, being shot,
like in the air
for the sitcom.
They get back down and they Zack and Kelly kiss, and that's that.
Yeah, Zack, they meet back up where I guess at the like landing base or whatever.
Is it at the landing base or do they do it back at their like place?
I just remember the final shot is as we haven't gotten that much of this in this one, Zack turns to the camera and talks to us.
And says, hey, can we have some privacy, please?
He's about to make out with Kelly.
Pulls down the like wipe into black.
Yeah, exactly. And so, all right. So we had Willie Tanner from ALF was doing his, all of his soul searching,
trying to
and
meet his goals,
insecurities.
Unmet goals.
We had the peer pressure, and so now
I would say that's less peer pressure and more trying to get ahead at work.
Yeah, professional Machiavellianism, sure. And now this is like kind of the same thing as Willie. It's sort of like
I don't want to let my life just be, ho-hum. I've got to do the things while I can.
Yeah,
life
my
is
mortality,
short, whatever.
I can't be boring. And specifically, having goals and completing my goals.
Yeah.
Okay, let's finish it off with the neighborhood.
Season 2, Episode 19. Welcome to The Jump.
Yeah, this is a new show. We've never covered it. We've never watched it. We're jumping in cold here. And I feel like we're back on track after we were saying last time most of our shows were single cams. Now we've got 4 shows, even one that's super recent, all multi-cam.
Yeah, current show.
We're back
it's still
on
on
solid
the air.
ground. Yeah. So what's the premise of the show? Is there anything beyond there's neighbors and they live in their neighbors?
Yeah, so the premise of the show is that Max Greenfield and
Schmidt, of course.
Yeah, Schmidt from New Girl, and Beth Bears, who was on Two Broke Girls. She was the rich girl from Two Broke Girls.
Yeah.
Anyway, they are a Midwestern couple who gets a job in California. The wife gets a job in California and moves out to Pasadena. And the only house they can afford is in a neighborhood that is mostly like working class Black folks. And so they're like the only white people in the neighborhood.
Okay. And their neighbors are Cedric the Entertainer and Pam from Martin.
Yeah,
right?
Tashina Arnold, exactly.
And she's going to be kind of the focus of this
right.
one.
So this episode starts, she drives up to the house and Gemma comes over to say, hey, welcome home. How was your day? Whatever, be neighborly. Because we're like midway through season 2, almost to the end of season 2. So a lot of the conflict in this show comes from like them being the white people neighbor in this like Black neighborhood. And so, but that is not at all what this episode is about. We don't get any of that in this.
And I had no idea that was the premise of this. Like I said, I haven't seen it before. I don't know if I've seen a commercial or anything. I honestly just assumed like, it's 2025, and so we've got, people of various ethnicities in the show, and I didn't realize it was part of the premise that the neighborhood was primarily Black.
Yeah.
So I guess that maybe answers a little bit or addresses a little bit of my final fashion observation, which is this wife, Gemma. I guess this is to sort of accentuate their uptight whiteness. Like, she is dressed in this strange ass like Shakespeare shirt. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
she's wearing super high-waisted jeans and super high-waisted pants throughout the whole episode, and she has kind of puffy shirts
this
on top.
Shirt with that neck thing with like the plumage, like this neck thing and this big frilly and this pattern.
To me, she just looked like peak millennial. So like what millennials look like now that they're in their late 30s and are raising kids.
It looked bizarre to me. But in any case, she's going to go out and talk to what's the woman.
Tashina Arnold's name in this show is Tina.
Okay.
So Tina is freaking out because she's just come from the doctor. She went to her doctor because she'd been having these, like she said, just been feeling weird lately. And the doctor said, oh, you're starting menopause. And so she is like, oh my God, I can't possibly be getting old and starting menopause. Like, I'm losing everything that makes me me. I'm not sexy anymore. How can this be happening to me? Oh my goodness. And so now she's freaking out.
Yeah, and so it's Gemma who says that she tried skydiving when she was depressed when she turned 30. That's, like a moment of hostility when she's like, oh, I felt terrible when I turned 30.
And it's not the same thing, but skydiving helped me because it was like, it proved that I could still do something crazy and adventurous, and I still had a lot of verve and life left in me.
Yeah, there's a fun scene between Tina and her husband, Cedric the Entertainer, where she's in true like sitcom fashion, intimating that she wants to go skydiving in the most indirect way by saying like, oh, I want to try something different, or I want to, I forget what she says to get him. Eventually he thinks that she wants him to have sex outside, basically.
Right, exactly. He thinks she means like, let's go get freaky. And she is talking about, trying something new, getting, taking some risks. And then he's like, oh, should we go upstairs? And she's like, upstairs? No, we've got to go to a center for it. And he's like, wait, what? Yeah. And so then it comes out that she wants to go skydiving. And he's like, oh no.
He pulls a Robert California on his son. There's an episode of The Office where Robert California, the wacky boss that James Spader plays, he tells Andy, he's like, my wife is going to come and she's going to ask you for a job. You cannot give her a job here under any circumstances. And then when she's in the room with them, he keeps going like, Andy, I think I'm the boss. I'm telling you to give her a job. And he's like, I don't know what you want me to do. And
yeah, and eventually the son just is like, you know what? This is too many head games. You're right, Mom. You should go skydiving. And Dad, if you're a supportive husband, you'll go too.
Yeah. So look, long story short, he agrees to go. I think Max Greenfield, he's just enthusiastic from the jump, as it were, right? He's just playing his usual.
So his background is that he's former military.
Okay.
And this is his job. He is a skydiving instructor. And so he is there because he's one of the instructors. And the other instructor is, what's
Ricky
her face?
Lindholm.
Yeah,
from
Ricky Lindholm from
Garfunkel and Oates.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so they're the two instructors who are strapped to Sheena Arnold and Cedric the Entertainer's backs.
So at this point, we've got what sort of looks like I have never been skydiving, but this sort of looks like it's convincing me that this is what a real situation might look like. They're dressed in these very sort of like tactical looking things with these big visible like straps and clicks and stuff. Like I don't know, like everything just looks real.
They're pretty day glow, right? They're wearing suits, like the girls are in orange suits with yellow like day glow stripes and straps and stuff on them.
Yeah.
And the boys are in blue kind of flight suit, big floppy things. Although, wait a minute, sorry, just to comment on the fashion for a second, we need to go back to Saved by the Bell, the college years, because Mark Paul Gosselaar was in a like black flight suit that looked like a Marvel superhero costume. He looked so hunky.
Yeah, look, if we're saying it's okay to lust after the, 20-year-old actors on Saved by the Bell, Tiffany Amber Thiessen was looking pretty good in her, sweater.
But this is Mark Paul
off.
Gosselaar when he looked like a man and when that happened at the time, I remember being like, oh, he got really old. I don't think he's cute anymore.
No, his hair, I don't like the longer hair they give him in the college years.
Yeah, but this is how he's looking
They
older.
they look good because now they're adults. And so like they're filling out, you know. So Kelly is doing the thing where her sweatshirt is like cut at the top and it's like lopsided hanging off her shoulder, but it's so extreme that it's like a potato sack. I mean, it's like she cut
they
a
had to
4-foot
actually
hole.
they did. They had to actually put a tank top underneath it because it was open so much, and they put a little stitch. Anyway, but these are flight suits that are like the big baggy kind of flight suits, and the only thing that's sort of holding them close to the body are all of these straps from the different hooks and gear that you're talking about with the backpacks, and they're strapped to each other.
Yes, they're strapped to each other because just like in real life, if you're a first-time skydiver, you need to be actually going in tandem with another person. And so they get a lot of fun slapstick humor out of the characters being like basically in this sort of like open starfish pose, like connected to each other. And, like you're doing a skit in summer camp.
Exactly. Or the husband and wife are trying to have a serious heart-to-heart, and they've got these two people strapped to their backs.
Yeah. And so they get up on the plane. This is another one where I think it's hard to tell. Like they could have just brought all this stuff into the set. I always get the impression with this that they went to a real plane and installed cameras around it. But in any case, we get the same old shot of looking into the open door, of the plane up in midair. And Tina starts freaking out, right? This was all her idea, and she's the one that starts saying she can't do it. And then Cedric the Entertainer, Calvin, he gets this really nice, like kind of sincere, moment. He gives this whole speech about how, you don't need to do it, but you can. I don't remember the details, but it was good.
Well, and he he convinces himself. Like, his speech turns his mind around, and he's like, you don't have to go, but you know what? I'm gonna go, because if you want to do it, you shouldn't not do it just because you're scared, and I'll go first. And then he jumps out of the plane.
Yeah.
And then we get this great, like, comedy comes in threes moment of Tashina Arnold and Ricky, what's her name, like, pressed up against the door to the plane, because Ricky's like, okay, 1, 2, 3, let's go. And then Tashina Arnold puts her arms and legs out in like a Spider-Man starfishing on a building thing, and is like, no.
Yeah, she's
she won't
resisting.
go out the door. And then Ricky Lindham's face gets like pressed up behind her, and so both of their goggles go askew because their faces are pressed together. It's really funny, and they do it 3 times.
Yeah, and it is like something out of Martin, like something she would do in that, just that sort of crazy, like,
physical
characters
comedy,
struggling with each other. And we get an approach, technically now that we haven't gotten in any of the others, just some good old-fashioned green screen or some fakey sky, you know, just have the actors suspended in, by a something above in a parachute. And so this is the first time that we've been able to have like an actual dialogue scene.
Right. Dangling dialogue.
Yeah, of the real actors
of the real
themselves.
Actors,
And it's just kind of like, I can see my house from here type stuff.
Well, so exactly. Tina is like, wow, this is so beautiful. And look down there, there's Calvin. I wonder if he's enjoying this as much as I am. Oh, this is so great. And she's just like so happy. And then we cut to him, and he's like, just like screaming and screaming. And Max Greenfield's character is like, Calvin, you have to calm down. Calvin, stop screaming. Calvin, he's just like, the whole time.
Yes, which is, by the way, one of the reasons why I love watching these videos of skydiving and other sort of like daredevil or death-defying things. Like, people, the sight and sound of people screaming and then being flung or falling and having their scream like suddenly be completely inaudible. I could just watch that all day. I just find that so charming.
Okay, so this scene reminded me of one that we watched the other night, though, where it was a tandem skydive or a tandem parasailing or something, and the dude passed out on him and is like asleep, and the guide is like smacking the guy's face, and he's like, hey bro, are you okay? Bro, are you okay? Bro. And the guy like wakes up and immediately passes out again, and he's like, bro, are you okay? The guide's like freaking out.
Yeah, but so this one, I feel like we get kind of the same resolution as ALF, where it's sort of like, you don't really have to go skydiving. We all love each other, but it would be good to go skydiving, and it's a good experience.
Right. If you think you want to have an adventure, have an adventure.
Yeah.
Just do it. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. And so, it's interesting that none of these seem to be saying, like none of them are actually dissuading any of their characters or like we, the audience.
Right. Because it's one of
it.
those like relatively safe adventures, right?
Well, you said that 1 in 10 people. You said there's a 10% fatality.
No, I didn't say fatality. I said that something goes wrong.
Yeah,
like broken legs, ankles, whatnot. Landing on power lines, but still surviving.
That still seems high. But yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to stand by it.
All right. So looking back over these, what do we think? We got, surprising amount of lining up in terms of, again, the sort of, except for Herman's head, they all kind of have this soul searching.
Right.
I need to prove myself or
some sort of
like
reckoning with death and their own mortality in some way.
Yeah. So who wore it best?
Who wore it best? Oh, goodness. Jay, I didn't like any of these shows. This was kind of a bummer of a lineup. I was looking forward to The Neighborhood. I thought that I would like that show, and I think I'm shocked that it has been on CBS now for 7 seasons.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
No talk of it being not renewed next year. Like, it'll end in May, and by all reports, it looks like it's going to be renewed for an 8th season.
I will say, like, to sort of not to open up this can of worms, but to what I was saying in our Good Place episode about how just give me like a simple premise and really good performers. Like that's what that is. Like Max Greenfield, Cedric the Entertainer, Tahisha, whatever her name is. Tashina Arnold. Like that is a very solid cast with a simple, straightforward premise. So,
which is why I was looking forward to it. Anyway, that's why it's kind of a bummer that it wasn't that good. The acting notwithstanding, I just think it's sort of a ho-hum show. Yeah, and then Saved by the Bell, the college years, whatever. That's only fun as like look at my nostalgia gem. It was never a good show. None of the Saved by the Bells were. ALF, I don't know. I felt like the thing that makes ALF great is when we get a really good Willie moment. And this was a whole Willie episode. And I felt like we didn't have that one big like Willie speech that really took me there. So by default, this stupid Herman's Head episode maybe wins. But like I said, there's the only winner here was us when the 4 shows ended. I
don't really agree. I mean, I agree insofar as like nothing jumps out to me as like, oh, that one was really great. But I think these were fun overall. And I don't agree that Willie didn't have any good points. I think his whole speech about like, I thought I wanted to plummet, but then I decided not to plummet. So if you don't mind, I'd rather not plummet. Like,
yes.
I thought that was
a
funny.
good, no, you're right. That was a good little moment. But because it was a whole episode about him, we didn't get that big ass monologue.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like top 5 Willie episodes of ALF, but it's certainly like I didn't feel unsatisfied. I didn't feel like the Willie left me unsatisfied in this ALF episode.
You're just waiting on that one.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Herman's Head episode is fun for the same reasons why it's sort of reprehensible. But honestly, I kind of like the college years episode. I kind of think that middle section with the funeral kind of edges it out. Like,
and Holland Taylor's like shenanigans at the casket.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We didn't even get into that. She gets a funny little slapstick moment where it's so senseless. She takes a cell phone call, and this is back when cell phones were pretty rare. She takes a cell phone call while she's like paying her respects at the casket, but it makes no sense.
Right,
like,
and then drops the cell phone in the casket and then reaches down in and gets her like cufflink caught on his shirt.
I did laugh out loud when she ripped, she like did one final like rip of her arm to get it out of the casket, and she pulls the lining out with
No,
it.
the whole sleeve, his whole sleeve. Okay. Came out and like on her arm, and then she started pretending it was a hanky and like dabbing her eyes with it.
I thought that was pretty good, but yeah, just that whole bit with Screech dressed as Dracula, like it's just funny how like the skydiving parts of these like line up so exactly, pretty much that it's just kind of like
the
take
other
your
parts
pick.
of the story don't at all.
And then it's like Saved by the Bell just kind of edges it out with like, well, I'll see your skydiving and I'll raise you a goofy funeral scene. And even the professor doing like the Weekend at Bernie's thing and being dead on the couch. Like I kind of thought that was funny. So,
but you got to compare that with Hetty realizing that she is, still hot even when she's like 3 days dirty and in a ponytail.
Yeah, and that doesn't.
She's like, my worst fears have been realized. I'm a 9.
Yeah, that's the problem. Hetty doesn't do it for me. All right, so much for skydiving. What are we talking about next week?
Next week, it's all about superheroes, Jay. Blaine, we're watching episodes with superheroes. We're going to watch Gilligan's Island, Season 3, Episode 3, Pass the Vegetables, Please. Bewitched, Season 6, Episode 20, Super Arthur. Dinosaurs, Season 4, Episode 2, Earl, Don't Be a Hero. And The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Season 3, Episode 4, Super Twins.
Yep, sitcom characters turned superheroes is next week, and until then, we will consider this segment of the sitcom study concluded. Thank you for listening to the Sitcom Study. Tell us what you think or share your own TV tropes and topic ideas by sending a self-addressed stamped email to sitcomstudypodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram. And if you like the show, consider leaving a rating or review on your podcast app. It helps us boost those precious Nielsen ratings. The sitcom study is recorded in front of a live studio dog.